Welcome into the Slobberknocker Sports College Football Show. I'm your host, Dylan Leak. Joined as always by my man, Uncle T, here for a special college football playoff edition. And we have a special guest on today. Once again, Michelle joined the show. Thank you so much to Michelle for being on the show today. We had some technical difficulties with the recording of the very beginning, so I'm going to hop into the show right now and enjoy us breaking down all the college football playoff games for this upcoming weekend. Let's jump into the big game breakdowns. Obviously, we're just going to go through all four games. We'll go in order of when the games are being played. So we'll start with the 7-10 matchup, which is Notre Dame taking on Indiana Friday night in South Bend. Notre Dame opened as an 8.5-point favorite. It is now 7. I see at most spots, some places 7.5, but mostly 7 across the board. Michelle, give me just your keys to the game and who you like in this spot.
I really like Indiana. I think the keys to the game will be, can Notre Dame pass if it gets in a situation where it has to do so? Indiana is really effective against the run. And I know a lot of people will say Indiana hasn't really played anyone. We don't actually know how good they are against the run. Notre Dame really hasn't either. I think the strengths of schedule are very similar. I don't think either of these teams have really been tested. Now, Notre Dame lost to a bad team at home. Indiana lost to a bad team or a good team on the road. So I actually have a little bit more confidence in Indiana here just because of Curtis Rourke. I think he's the better quarterback. I think Indiana's the more balanced offense. And I think Indiana's defense can hold up. I think if they can make Riley Leonard have to pass, they got this game outright. But I certainly like Indiana, at least with the points.
Yep. Turner?
I think it's going to be a close game. I thought 8.5 was way too many points. I thought that was kind of weird. I didn't expect it to be that high when those lines first came out. Obviously, Notre Dame's pretty solid defense. They got exposed and like against USC, and they really haven't played anybody. Like Michelle alluded to, they lost to Northern Illinois. To be fair, not that Northern Illinois is good, and they should have never lost that game, but they were healthy when they beat Notre Dame, and they were ravaged with injuries all year. I know Dylan's a Mac hater.
They're horrible. They're horrible. You were at home as a 30-point fave. Get out of here.
They're not ready to play the game. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. Horrible. It was a really bad loss for the Irish. I think, man, I agree with you. Riley Leonard really can't throw it. Struggles to throw it. I think Rourke is a better quarterback. I think Notre Dame's a little bit better of a football team. I'm going to say Notre Dame wins this game by a field goal. It's close. I mean, like I said, 8.5 points was crazy. I think before kickoff, you might even see it get to 6.5 points. I don't even know if 7 will hold. I think people are going to take Indiana.
I agree with both of y'all in this. Michelle brought up a good point, and I was listening to somebody talk about, and everybody says that about Indiana, how they haven't played anybody. And my notes were, well, who has Notre Dame played? And looking specifically at Notre Dame's defense versus Indiana's offense, they're very, very similar in the sense that, okay, Notre Dame's defense is elite metrically, right? All basic counting stats, yards per play, yards per game, points per game, all of that. Look at who they played. Played Texas A&M game 1 with essentially a backup quarterback because he ended up not being the starter. Florida State with a backup quarterback. Georgia Tech with a backup quarterback. USC with a backup quarterback. 2 option offenses in Army and Navy. And the other 5 games they played, Virginia, Stanford, Purdue, Northern Illinois, and Miami, Ohio. None of those teams rank in the top 100 in offensive efficiency. So they haven't played a soul. And the only teams in the top 50 that they did play in offensive efficiency were Louisville and USC. They got outgained by 115 yards in both those games. They gave up 500 plus to USC with Jordan Mailata as quarterback, who I don't think is very good. I mean, I actually was on Notre Dame -7 in that game. And, if you look at the final score, they won by 21. USC had a 1st and 10 at the Notre Dame 21-yard line in a 7-point game in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes to go. And Mailata threw back-to-back pick sixes in the final 2 drives of the game. Otherwise, that game easily goes to overtime. USC could have won the game, and Notre Dame wouldn't have been in the playoff at all. Then I look at Indiana, and sorry not to go too long on this, but I look at Indiana, and it's kind of similar. Indiana stepped up in class. They played nobody, right? Their non-conference were FIU, Western Illinois, and Charlotte. They stepped up in class 2 times against good defenses. Michigan, who when they played Michigan, I think they had like 17 in the first half. They had 28 or 25 plays for 18 yards in the entire second half. Couldn't move the ball at all. Scored, one basically just because Michigan couldn't score. And then the other team they played was Ohio State, and they scored the first possession and didn't score their next 9. So I don't really know what to do with this game. Obviously, I would definitely agree with y'all in the sense that I think it's going to be close. I would take the points 100%. If I was betting this on the money line, I would probably take Indiana just because of the value at whatever that number, plus 250 or whatever, plus 220, whatever it is. I want so badly to pick Indiana. The whole time I've picked Notre Dame in this spot, but I kind of want to root for Indiana, so I'm going to pick Indiana in this spot as well. I
was about to call you a coward after all that too, because I was he's going to pick Notre Dame by a field goal. No, after all that, they're not any good. Yada yada yada.
I don't like
Notre Dame by a field goal.
I don't like Notre Dame anyway, so I want to root for Indiana. I like Rourke. I like Cignetti. And last thing, Cignetti's had 3 weeks to prepare, or two plus weeks to prepare. Notre Dame runs exclusively man coverage. I think Cignetti's going to have some man beaters ready to go over the next 2 weeks. And last little bit of info, Notre Dame is really good in the secondary, but they have 3 cornerbacks left on the roster that are scholarship players. If one of those guys goes down, it's going to be trouble for Notre Dame because they're not going to be able to load the box like they've done all year. So I'm with y'all. I'm with Michelle. I'm going Indiana here.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with this game too that there's not really a meaningful home field advantage. I mean, in some of these other matchups, I think weather is a factor to some degree or another. Distance is a factor. This one, it's like the same state. They've both played in the same weather. I think I've never really viewed Notre Dame as a meaningful home field advantage as it is. I don't think that stadium gets very rowdy, but here especially, this has got to be like the least home field advantage of all 4 of these playoff games, I would think.
Absolutely. I completely agree, especially weather-wise, right? Like this is nothing different, right? Like, yeah, I would agree. It's the least crazy home field, and the weather won't be a factor. I agree with you there. Yeah. Do you think if Indiana wins this game, do you think they'll beat, who would they play next? Georgia? You think they have any shot to beat Georgia?
There's a chance. But
if Beck doesn't, what if Beck doesn't play?
I don't think Beck will play. I think Beck is seriously messed up. More than
they haven't said for sure, right?
They have not said for sure. I have a high degree of skepticism that he's out. But I will also tell you, I don't necessarily think that makes Georgia all that much worse, because I saw that team play pretty impressively when Beck went out.
Yeah. You're gonna have less interceptions probably. They look better in the second half, to be honest.
And they've got time to prepare, right?
Yeah,
with Stockton.
Right.
So
right. It's not like he's being thrown in the second half of an SEC title game where he was fine, but now Kirby's got extra time to prepare. He's gonna sit back. He's got a bye, obviously, and can watch that game. So I agree with that 100%. Let's move on to game number 2. It's the morning game on Saturday. Number 6 Penn State, we talked about already, taking on SMU. Penn State sits at about an 8.5 point favorite right now. Total on the game is 54. This one, a lot of people think weather will play a factor. So SMU, the average weather is that they've played in games this year, 76 degrees. It's going to be 29-degree high in Happy Valley. Do you think weather plays a role here? That crowd also, I don't know if SMU has played in an environment like that ever, any of those guys. Do you think that's going to play a big role here? And who do you like in this one, Michelle?
I think this is the most profound home field advantage of these games by far, not just because of the weather, which I think will be a shock to the system of that SMU team, but also they're doing a whiteout. That place is going to be rowdy. These guys are fired up to host a playoff game. This is a huge spot. I rarely say that a spread is too big. I tend to be more conservative in how I look at spreads, too small. But I think the spread is too small. I think we have a real blowout potential here. And I can get into the reasons, but to answer your initial question, like environment's going to play a huge role. And I think it's probably worth at least 5 points alone, not even getting into the level of football play.
Yeah, it's interesting that I looked that ACC championship game was, it was like in the 30s, and beyond the weather, that was technically in Clemson's backyard, but I believe it was like a 65% capacity. Like it was not a full stadium whatsoever. Completely different environment. I actually think it's harder to play at Penn State in the morning. Some people might disagree with me and say it's difficult at night. I don't know why. Every time I watch Penn State at night, I feel like that's when they get upset. Maybe because they play Ohio State sometimes. I have no idea.
It's because it's a big game.
yeah, I have no
idea.
They
lose all those.
But so just in terms of the matchup, then James Franklin, I believe the number, I wrote it down here somewhere. I think it's 3-19 against top 10 teams. Technically, even though SMU is the 11th seed, they are the 10th ranked team in the college football playoff. Any merit to that? And Michelle and then Turner go as well. Like, does this play a role here? I know usually Franklin is an underdog when he struggles and just gets blown out. Here, he's a big favorite. Does that have any bearing on this matchup?
I think absolutely. It's sort of astonishing, James Franklin's record when they're favored versus when they're not. He meets expectations perfectly. He rarely exceeds them, but he tends to meet them, at least if you're looking at who's favored in a matchup. I think this is a great spot for him. And I think even though it wouldn't necessarily reverse the narrative that he underperforms in big spots because Penn State is supposed to win this game by a pretty healthy margin, I think James Franklin needs this to solidify himself at Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, what happens if he loses this game? Like, I don't think he gets fired, but it's just, I mean, if he loses this game at home, they finally make the playoffs because it's been expanded, not because he did anything different than he normally did, exactly what he always does, loses the one game he needs to win and wins all the games that he should win. I don't know what happens if I guess it's just the same James Franklin and they go to the next year. I don't know if things will ever change with him.
I don't think he gets fired, but like I said last year when some people picked Penn State to win the national title, that I didn't think last year was Penn State's year. Other teams were too good. But last year when I was talking about Penn State, I said this year might be the year that they got to do it because Aller's back. He's more senior. I know Aller's probably coming back again next year, but I think they're going to lose Allen and Singleton. That's been a really key part of their offense. So I think this is an important moment for James Franklin, not because he's going to get fired if he doesn't win, but because if not now, when is the question I have for Penn State.
That's a great point. Turner, what do you think?
Yeah, if this game was just, if this is like she touched on, obviously this is the biggest home field advantage discrepancy in all the games. Like if this game was on a neutral field where, weather wasn't a factor and stuff, I think with just James Franklin's track record, and I don't think Penn State's all that good. I know they run the ball really well. Defense is okay. They should have lost to USC earlier in the year. USC gave them that game and ended up winning overtime. Should have lost to Minnesota. They just, I don't know. They always find a way to, if James Franklin doesn't run a fake punt against Minnesota, they lose the game probably. Credit to him for pulling that off there. But, it's just a big game, and I understand they're favored in it. I think the Pony Express gets disrespected. I think they came out really bad against Clemson last week and then started playing good football towards the end of the game. I'm going to pick Penn State in the game. I don't know how they're going to handle the crowd. They did a really good job looking at the Cal box score. They did a good job against Cal, against the run, and they held, Clemson to 2 yards a carry last week. Maffa couldn't get anything going. Now, the running game for Penn State is completely different, obviously. If there's one thing they do better than anybody probably in the country is turn around and hand the ball to Singleton. So, it's gonna be tough in that weather. I'm gonna say Penn State wins. I think it's gonna be a fairly ugly game too. I'll say Penn State by 7. I don't know. I just don't see them There is a big talent disparity. It's James Franklin, and I can't pick him to win by more than 7 points at a big game. I just don't know. Don't think it's going to happen.
It's a fair point.
But I'm going to be rooting hard for the Pony Express and SMU. I hope they pull the upset.
Look, I'm rooting for SMU. I just don't think they have a shot here. The one thing I'll say that is somewhat of a saving grace is I think if SMU has not, they've been okay running the ball this year. And they've been at their worst the last 4 games. I think they're averaging $130 over their last 4 games, which is not great for them. If they can't get the run game going and they get into 3rd and long, they're dead. I mean, Penn State will win by 20. It won't be close. They have to run the ball. The one saving grace for SMU that I saw when I was looking into this, and I like to look at like weird little advanced stats and stuff, but it was real interesting when I looked at this. When you look at Penn State and you look at their defensive rushing success rate and yards before first contact, they against all offenses except spread offenses, they're top 15 in the country. Against a spread offense, which was, I believe, USC, Bowling Green, and there was one other they played this year, they were outside the top 80. They gave up 2 more yards before first contact against spread offenses. That's what SMU does. They spread you out and they run the ball. Oh, it was Oregon last week. Oregon spread them out and ran 5 yards a carry right down their throat. And I didn't think Oregon was going to be able to do that. And it was shocking to me. The way that game was a shootout was weird. I thought Penn State was going to be much better defensively. And that makes sense. When they get spread out and they can't load guys in the box, they're different defense. So I think the key to the game for SMU is you have to find a way to run the ball early and often, establish the run game, get yourself in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2. Don't be in 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9 where Abdul Carter is coming off the edge with his 20% pressure rate. If that happens, Kevin Jennings is in for a long day, and the Pony Express is going to lose by 21. That's my take. And I'm going to say Penn State by 10. I think they cover the spread.
I think my big concern for SMU is I watched Jennings, and he has a tendency to just flick the ball on a prayer if he's under pressure. And I saw what Penn State did to Will Howard early on, right? Penn State definitely has the personnel. They have the personnel up front to pressure Jennings, and then they have the personnel to capitalize on that. And what I worry about primarily for SMU is Jennings gets uncomfortable and makes some bad decisions, especially in that environment, going back to that environment. Like it's going to be intense. And then if Penn State gets momentum with a defensive score or 2, it's just going to be a long day. Yeah,
I agree. So you're picking Penn State?
I'm picking Penn State to cover fairly decisively.
Okay. Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah.
But I'm rooting for SMU. I should just establish the record that I would love to see the upset here to the extent it's possible. I just think it's unlikely.
Good. So we're all rooting for SMU, but think Penn State's going to win. Yeah. Okay. Like it. Okay. We'll move on to number 5 Texas taking on Clemson, number 12 Clemson, the only team in the college football playoff not ranked in the top 12. But they are the 12 seed. Texas opened as an 11-point favorite. It's up to 12 in a lot of spots. This is the afternoon game in Austin, Texas. Double-digit favorites in the college football playoff. Small sample size, but they're 8-0 straight up. Have not seen a double-digit favorite go down in the college football playoff. So this will be a first if Clemson were to pull the upset. Michelle, last time you were on, it was before the A&M Texas game, and I told you I was nervous because of Quinn Ewers. And he did give A&M a shot late, but you were right. You said, don't be worried. Texas is going to win. Do I have anything to be worried about here, or is Texas going to win this pretty easily?
I mean, I would have said yes before that Georgia game, but there were a couple of things that made me nervous in the Georgia game, which is Texas did not look very reliable in the red zone. They had red zone issues against A&M too, right? Like Ewers made some mistakes, not great. I don't have tremendous confidence in them to score in the red zone or to score touchdowns. Their run game has kind of sputtered a little bit. I was really shocked in that overtime that they didn't have like one run play they could go to.
So frustrating.
I wanted Texas to win the SEC championship. I picked them to do so. I thought it would be great. And I was like, what's your run play? So I think you have a shot, and I think you'll be okay. I do think this spread is a little bit generous toward Texas, if I'm being perfectly honest. But I think you have a shot if we see more Arch Manning. I think that offense really needs more Arch Manning to keep things dynamic, because Clemson's defense is not terrific, but they're good.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I worry about that Texas offense's ability to score points. And one thing we know about Clemson is they don't have much, but they have explosive plays. And if they can drop a couple of those on you, and that's a big if, but if they can, I don't know that Texas, weirdly, is going to be able to keep pace.
That's a good point. I mean, I'm not sold Texas is going to win for sure. I hope they do. I don't think Clemson's great, but I've been anti-Quinn Ewers, and not obviously not as a person. I just don't think he's as good as everybody thought early in the year when he was a Heisman candidate. I just thought Arch Manning was the better option in the long run, and I didn't understand it. Turner tells me every week I should stop complaining because I'm not going to see Arch, and I want to every week, and it's just not going to happen. But Turner, who do you like? Are my Horns? I know you don't really care about the Longhorns, but you root for them because of me. So are they going to win?
Yeah, so you don't stroke out and die on us. I root for them. Easy wins for Dylan. Otherwise, if this is close early, I don't know if we'll be able to take it. You'll just be hearing, I can't believe they have Quinn Ewers in the game still. Yeah, I think, man, if you look at it, the last, 4 games that Texas has played, they just really haven't blown anybody out. They've been in control. I mean, obviously they lost to Georgia, but when you look at A&M, Kentucky, they scored with 3 minutes left to go up 17 on Kentucky, but it was a 10-point game. That Arkansas game got really close. I think Texas ultimately wins this game. I don't think they're going to do it by 14 or 21. I think it's in the 7 to 10 point range. I think it's going to be, I don't think you're going to be panicked at the end of it, but I just don't see a blowout happening. I think they're going to, I think the defense is just too good for Clemson to beat them. But your arch nemesis Quinn that you just can't stand, he'll probably turn the ball over twice. So,
y'all both know, right? There's 2 things to me that not only lend itself to whether or not Texas wins this game and covers a number, but whether they can win a national title. And that is if Quinn Ewers takes care of the football or doesn't, and can they score in the red zone or can't they? And number 2 also goes to, can they run the ball? Because you mentioned this, Michelle. I think the first play of overtime, they put Arch Manning in and ran a quarterback power, and then a running back didn't touch the ball in overtime. So it was baffling. And not to mention, it felt like we converted a 3rd down and 5 very luckily. It was a pass that probably shouldn't have been caught, and then got a fresh set of downs, and it went shot to the end zone, shot to the end zone, shot to the end zone, kick a field goal. So, it just, I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting out of Quinn Ewers. There are times in that Georgia game early between the 20s, I think I said out loud, and I'm anti Quinn Ewers. I was like, he's dealing right now. He looks really good. And they get inside the 20 and just can't finish a drive or throws an interception. So to me, this just comes down to those 2 things. If Texas is scoring, if Texas is 92nd in scoring percentage in the red zone, if they finish drives with touchdowns, they absolutely will not only win this game, they'll win this game by a lot. That is, to me, I think you were right, Michelle. I think that dictates this whole game, and I think it dictates Texas's season. I just don't. I think they probably will be okay in this spot, and they'll probably get past Arizona State, and then they'll probably lose to Ohio State or Oregon because when they've stepped up in class against really good talent, which is just Georgia this year because they haven't played anybody, they lost both times. So I'm going to say Texas wins this by, Turner, you said, did you say 10? I guess I'll say
7 to 10. Yeah. I think it's going to be in that.
I'll say by 10. I'll say by 10. And it's going to either be 10 and Clemson scores a late touchdown, Texas is up 17 the whole game, or it's going to be 3 and Texas scores very late to put this away in a tight game. But this ain't going to be a blowout, I don't think.
I just think with like she touched on, obviously you can have bringing in Arch makes them far more dynamic. But if they would just bring in Arch in the red zone only, like let Quinn play, right? Let him move it inside the 20, because when a team doesn't have to account for the run in the red zone, it's really easy to get stops. If they're just dropping guys in a condensed field. They're just dropping guys back. It's very easy to cover. In Georgia, every single time Texas had the ball in the red zone, knew, well, they're not going to run it. They can't run it. So we're just going to drop back, and there's nowhere to throw the ball. If you bring him in and you have the threat of his legs in the red zone, it's a completely different animal. But I mean, I just think that I actually do believe that Sark will do that more in the playoffs. I do think you'll see much more Arch mainly in the red zone. I don't think, you're going to see him for other players, but I think when they get inside the 15, 20, whatever, they're down there. I think it's in the playoffs. It doesn't matter about hurting, Quinn Ewers' feelings at this point. It's like, we're going to bring the guy in that we think have the best chance to score touchdowns in the red zone. And that's obviously Arch. So
do y'all think go ahead, Michelle.
If you look at quarterbacks Clemson has struggled against, right? Lenora Sellers, Kevin Jennings, not great against the mobile quarterback, that Clemson defense. And if I'm Sark and I look at this track record, I ask myself, do I have a mobile quarterback? And the answer is yes. Yes, I do. So I think he would be a fool not to utilize that here.
Yeah, I had that in my notes as well. I completely agree. They've struggled with running quarterbacks. It's absolutely true. And I thought for sure Sark, and I really, although I don't like Quinn Ewers, I love Sark. I think he's phenomenal. Recruiting, building the program, play calling. I was shocked that in the Georgia game, we didn't see Arch more, and we didn't see a package and a play for Arch to throw the ball, because we ran him the week before for the first time and put that package in, and now Georgia had to prepare for it, and you come in thinking he's going to run it, and it's a pull, and it's not like the guy can't throw the ball. We saw him for three games this year throw all over people. So, yeah, I hope they use him more. I don't know. I think you're right, Turner. I think he will use him more. But, I mean, I'm curious. Do y'all think there's any there's rumors Quinn Ewers is going to come back and then transfer to there's a $4 million offer for him to go to a Big Ten school, which I think is Oregon, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't know where it is.
It's got to be Oregon. Yeah, I think it's Oregon.
Do you think that plays any role here, either of y'all? The fact that there are rumors swirling that he's going to go transfer to another school, or does it not matter because he was leaving to go to the draft anyway? Does this have any bearing on this game?
I mean, I think Sark has identified Arch as the quarterback of the future, regardless of what Quinn does. I mean, something short of, Quinn Ewers entering the transfer portal during the playoff, which would be the most extraordinary thing we've ever seen. But something short of that, I just don't think is a real concern for Sark if he feels confident that he's got Arch going forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just don't I don't think Quinn ever comes back to Texas and think Texas knows Sark knows. You're lucky. Most quarterbacks would have left after not playing for a second year, and Arch didn't. So he's the guy. Otherwise, I don't think you tell him to stay. All right, we'll move on to the last game. And it's the Buckeyes playing in the Horseshoe against Tennessee, the 8-9 matchup. Last time out, we saw the Buckeyes. They were getting taken down by your Michigan Wolverines in a crazy upset, 20-point underdog, 20.5-point underdogs. I'm curious to see in this one, if Ohio State gets down early, how that crowd reacts to Will Howard and Ryan Day, because there's a lot of animosity going on. I mean, all I saw were videos of people saying, I hate Ryan Day. I fire Ryan Day. And now he's got to go out and coach a home playoff game. Give me just your keys to the game or any takes you have on this game. I know this is kind of in your backyard of teams that you follow. So,
yeah, I 100% agree. I am skeptical that this doesn't become a home field disadvantage.
Yeah.
Because I watched that Michigan-Ohio State game again this week. The fans started booing in the second quarter. The second quarter, the fans were booing the run it straight up the middle, right into Mason Graham play call by Chip Kelly. I think there is going to be even more tension there, given what is on the line. It's also going to be late. It's going to be cold. People are going to be drunk. And I think people remain pissed off, extremely pissed off after what happened with Michigan. And I think they will struggle to contain those emotions. I mean, honestly, if things start to go badly early, I think we could see the fans who are there turn. Again, that there's sort of a question as to, what percentage of the shoe is going to be Ohio State fans versus Tennessee fans. But I think there's a real chance this turns early. And then you have to wonder too about the mental state of that team. I know a lot of people want to look at what Ohio State did in 2022 after losing in Columbus to Michigan and then going down to Atlanta and playing a really good game against a good Georgia team and say, Ohio State can bounce back. We've seen them do it before. I think there's something really different about the expectations that were on this 2024 Ohio State team, given the number of seniors who came back, who have now lost to Michigan 4 times in a row. That hits different than just your second loss to Michigan. The most expensive roster in program history in college football. There was so much riding on that Michigan game, and I don't think any of us can even fathom the level of agony and disappointment that really the core of that team experienced. I don't think we can. And I think it is a real question mark whether they are able to bounce back from that, stay motivated, and actually stay engaged in this game. Like I said, especially if things take a turn early, if the fans turn on them, this just has the potential, I think, again, notwithstanding anything to do with the actual football play, but just based on environment alone and psychology alone, to go badly for Ohio State.
Yeah. And I'm curious their mental state. I think you nailed it, all of that. But thinking about their path, like not only did we give up a shot to play in a Big Ten championship and get a bye, we now have to play Tennessee from the SEC. If we win that, we then go play the number 1 team who already beat us in Oregon on a neutral. If we win that, we probably play Texas, who's the 3rd best team. And if we win that, we probably play Georgia, who's number 2. It's like the most brutal road to a championship anybody. It's gauntlet. And so how many of those guys are thinking, not only did we squander this opportunity, not only did we lose to Michigan, not only are we devastated, not only are we hearing all of this outside noise that you just mentioned, now we look at it's only human to look at your road. And they've heard a lot of those guys, if they're on social media, have heard all the pundits say, oh, this is Oregon got screwed with their road, and you're the team playing Oregon in that next game, so yours even harder. I agree with you 100%. I think from a mental aspect, this is a really tough spot. From a game aspect, if Ohio State does get past if they come into that game locked in mentally and play this game, I think in that case, they have a decent shot to win the game. I don't know what Nico, and I'm going to try to pronounce his name, Amaviala, and I probably said it wrong. I don't know what he is. He doesn't turn the ball over a ton, but he just doesn't have like great touch on his balls deep. He got a little bit better as the year went on. They played better as of late as an offense, but there were a lot of games where I watched that they didn't score a point in an entire half. Like there was a good stretch of SEC play where they hadn't scored, I think, for 3 games in the first half. And if they don't score in the first half of this game and Ohio State gets a lead, then they have no shot because if they get one-dimensional and have to throw the ball down the field, good luck. Obviously, they've got a solid run game and they can be balanced. And then on the other side, I'm curious, that Ohio State defense is elite metrically, but I'm sorry, on the other side, Tennessee's defense, the secondary is extremely weak. Now, can Ohio State take advantage of that? I don't know. Chip Kelly, like to your point, against Michigan was like, we're going to line up and run it behind a backup center at Mason Graham like 72 straight times. And just, I didn't understand it. It's baffling to me. And I listened to Chip Kelly's press conference and he did come out and take responsibility. And he's like, I need to get the ball in playmakers' hands. I need to get the ball out in space to my guys. I didn't do that. That's on me. But I don't know. I haven't seen a propensity for Chip Kelly to ever change what he does. So we'll see. No. I lean Ohio State. I think Ohio State wins this game. This is the most variance game because there's so many mental, physical matchup. You could go a million different ways and make a case for either side. I'm going to say Ohio State wins a close game. I have no idea which way this is going.
I think Ohio State wins a close one. If you're Tennessee, you hand the ball to Samson 30, 35 times this game. You gotta give. I know Ohio State's got a good defense, but you just gotta shorten this game. Tennessee's a physical running team, and just try to hit some big plays. Give Nico easy throws to get it into their athletes' hands out wide. But I would hand it to Samson a gazillion times. My problem here is a Tennessee team, and I agree 100% with Penn State obviously being the toughest place to play. In the Horseshoe, like you guys said, it might be a very hostile environment towards Ryan Day and the home team. It's just Samoan quarterbacks in cold weather don't typically mix. Look at Tua. There's not a lot of guys. They're not used to it. He's from California. He's from Long Beach. He's a Samoan. He's never played in a game like this ever. So I know that people are like, oh, whatever, maybe he'll figure it out. It's a tough thing to do to go on a road and play sub-freezing temperature football at Ohio State when you've never done that before. He's never played a game like this in California, never played a game like this in the SEC. Cold weather and SEC teams typically don't mix. I think Ohio State wins this game by, I don't know. I don't think it's a blowout either, as long as Tennessee. I think you'll see Heupel have a pretty good game plan. I think they're going to run the ball a ton, shorten the game.
Is low scoring then? Is that what you think? It's gonna be a low scoring?
Yeah, I'd say, I would go fairly low scoring. I'll say 24-21 Ohio State. They win by 3, something like that. I don't know. That's my guess. I don't think it's just going to be an absolute stalemate. But if Tennessee was smart, they'd just, like I said, pound the ball and go from there.
In the game. Yeah. Do you think there's going to be points here, Michelle, or is this going to be lower scoring?
I think there will be points. Okay. I do. I think Nico has the ability to do something Michigan couldn't do, which is pass the ball. Michigan was pretty one-dimensional, but Michigan was also able to make some defensive plays. And I think Tennessee absolutely can here. Like, Will Howard has not been great against good defenses. We saw him throw an early pick 6 against Penn State. We saw him throw 2 interceptions against Michigan. And I think this defensive front for Tennessee has the ability to apply some pretty meaningful pressure. I do, especially if that O-line is as vulnerable as it appeared against Michigan. I was impressed that Michigan didn't blitz as much as I expected them to, but they still made Will Howard look pretty bad. Yeah, and, it doesn't matter who you've got at wide receiver if your quarterback cannot make good decisions and get the ball to them. And so I do think there can be points just based on their respective passing capabilities and weapons. But I also think these defenses are both really good. So we'll see.
So did you pick Tennessee, or are you picking Tennessee, or did you pick Ohio State?
Tennessee. Yeah. Tennessee. No. Go Vols.
Would you ever pick Ohio State, even if they were a 21-point favorite, would you pick them?
If they were a 20, I've seen them lose as 21-point favorite.
I just they just lost as 21-point favorite.
No, I actually have objectively picked Ohio State, and when I've done so, they always lose. I think I picked them twice. I picked them against Oregon earlier in the season, and I picked them against Missouri. I don't know if you remember that game. It was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. So maybe I should pick them because I tend to jinx them when I do.
That would be a thing that's the type of thing we would do. We picked Colorado 3 weeks in a row, just trying to get them to lose this year.
Did it work?
No, every time we picked them, they kept winning. And if we're on the same side, we usually lose. So it was interesting. Yeah, they did finally lose at the end, but we didn't pick them at that point.
Yeah.
We did actually think Kansas would beat them, though.
No, that's what I'm saying. We both picked Kansas in that game. That's the first time we didn't pick
them. I thought Kansas would beat them too. I thought Kansas would beat them in May. I remember discussing the Kansas-Colorado game in May.
Yeah. Okay. since we've already we picked these games, let's just kind of go through and quickly pick from our picks who we would pick in the next round. We don't have to break it down or anything. We can just give a quick pick and why we would take it. So, second round matchup for you, Michelle, would be in the top. Oregon taking on Tennessee would be that first one. Oregon, Tennessee. Who would you pick? Who do you have in that one?
I got the Ducks. Okay,
Ducks. And then Turner, you would it be Oregon, Ohio State?
Yeah, I'll go Ducks either way. They're tough to stop.
Okay. I'm going to say Ducks win regardless. Ducks will beat Ohio State as well. Next game would be, I think we all have Texas, Arizona State, correct? Yep. Okay. Michelle?
Texas
by a million. Then we've got on the next level, it would have been, Penn State taking on Boise State for all of us in the 3-6. Are we all going Penn State here?
Yeah, I'm going to go Penn State.
Okay, well, I'll go Penn State. And then me and Michelle have Indiana taking on Georgia. Turner has Notre Dame.
You know what? I'm going to go Notre Dame just for fun.
Oh my God.
Give me the Irish. 2 in a row. I mean, not that I agree with Michelle because Carson Beck does suck, but I mean that kid, the young kid in a big game, I don't know. Give me the Irish.
Okay. I'm taking Georgia. Michelle?
I got Georgia too.
Okay. I thought there was a chance you would go Indiana there just because you like the Hoosiers.
I love Indiana.
Yeah.
And I love Sig, but no, I don't.
Not in that one. Okay, let's see. So then we would have up top, Michelle, you would have Oregon, Texas at that point.
I got Oregon there. I got the Ducks again.
Okay, so no horns. They're out there. Turner, was it Oregon, Texas?
Yeah, I mean, I always pick Texas and they fuck it up, but I'll go Texas.
Take Oregon.
I'll take Texas. Now, all right, fine. I'll let you have Oregon. I'll take Oregon. I'll take the Ducks.
Okay, I've got Texas.
They're gonna beat Texas.
Look, objectively, they probably will, especially after. But they didn't look good defensively. I was surprised Penn State was able to move the ball like they did.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take Texas. And then in the bottom, so Turner, you got Notre Dame and Penn State now. Now what are you going to do? Because you don't like Penn State.
I'm going Irish all the way to
the Irish to the championship game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I see.
And then they'll lose by 50 to Oregon in the championship like they did against Alabama. So
okay, so
Notre Dame all the way to the championship. Oregon.
Okay, Michelle, you've got Georgia and Penn State?
Yep, I like Penn State here.
Really, Penn State to the championship?
Yep.
Oh man, okay, I like it. I'm gonna be a coward here and take Georgia. So give me mine's what? Georgia, Texas in the championship. Round 3, third time's a charm. Give me the Horns to win the whole thing. Turner, you picked the Ducks, right, to win?
Yeah, I guess I'll take the Ducks.
All right, Michelle, you got Oregon and Penn State Big Ten rematch for the title.
I got the Ducks.
The Ducks all the way. You've stuck with the Ducks the whole way.
Yep.
Yeah.
I thought after they beat Ohio State in Eugene that it was going to be either Oregon or Texas. I think the real national title game is Oregon, Texas.
Yeah.
But that's not what the playoff bracket thinks. So.
Yeah, we're gonna have to watch it in the semifinals, I guess. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah. Well, we got a lot of college football coming this week. Friday, Saturday games. First college football playoff ever. Michelle, thank you again for joining us. We'll be back next week. Me and Turner will to talk why Texas somehow got upset by Clemson, and I'll be losing my mind. But hopefully we'll get Michelle back on the show soon. Thank you again for joining us, Michelle. As always, wonderful, Michelle.
Thanks, guys.